You ever find yourself stuck trying to learn a new trick or a new skill on your inline skates or on the skateboard? Well, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is there's only 3 things you can do about that. The bad news is there are 3 things you can do about that, and you got to decide which one of those 3 is the right course of action for you in your particular situation. So let's talk about them. Now you may be saying to yourself, old guy, you've only been inline skating for a year and back on the skateboard for a couple of months. What do you know about getting stuck on tricks? To that, I'll say I've spent a lifetime doing sports that I wouldn't call, I don't know, extreme sports, but I would say they were like low margin, high consequence sports. And what I mean by that is there's a low margin for error and there's a high consequence for failure, in some cases fatal. So I do know a thing or two about learning new skills, and I've got broken bones, I have concussions, I've got dislocations, separations, and all kinds of injuries to show that sometimes it takes a lot of work to get to a skill. So let's talk about the 3 things you can do. So what are your 3 options? Number 1 is just keep trying and trying and trying, the most obvious. Try and try and try until you get it. The second option, a little less obvious, but is to stop for a little while and wait and then come back to it. And then the third option, which is probably going to be the most controversial, is just quit. Just give up on it and move on. And so I'm going to talk about a few situations in my own life where I've gone through kind of all 3 of these phases and how it could apply to your life, especially as we get older. I think the answers to how it can apply could change from a young person to an old person. They still have the same 3 options, but how they approach those options could change. So let's talk about these. All right, let's talk about the second option first, which is wait, kind of stop for now and come back to it later. Because I think that applies to a lot of new skaters, especially if you're older and you're coming into the sport brand new. So let's talk about really a couple of reasons why you would put something off that you're struggling with and try it later. And one reason is maybe you have an injury and trying this new trick or trying to learn this new skill kind of makes that injury worse, or it kind of slows the healing of that injury, or potentially could re-injure that. That's a good reason to just stop, put that trick on hold, and move on to something else. And the second reason is one that I see all the time with young, like very young, brand new skaters, especially on the skateboard, and that's trying to learn something before you have the fundamental skills needed to learn that trick. A good example is I see these young skaters come to the park for the first time, brand new board, and all they want to learn how to do is ollie. And yeah, the ollie is a foundational trick for skateboarding, but the ollie is not a foundational trick. It is a foundational trick for skateboarding. So in my mind, you need to learn how to ride your skateboard before you need to learn how to ride ollies. I see these guys, they can't even go down a bank at the skate park, and yet they're trying to learn ollies. So there comes a point where you need to have some fundamental skills before you can try to attempt a trick. A couple of more examples are maybe something like a rock to fakie on a skateboard or a frontside stall on the inline skates. Both of those things require you to be able to get back down that ramp in a fakie position. Sure, on a frontside stall you could do a 180 out and come back down on the inlines, but again, that's another skill that you have to have, is 180 and out and coming back down that ramp. So before you can try a rock to fakie or before you can try a frontside stall, you really need to be comfortable coming down that ramp backwards, and that one took me a while. It took me a good 4 or 5 months to feel comfortable enough coming down the ramp backwards before I'd go for a stall. So those are the 2 big things about waiting, is you have an injury or you just don't have the fundamental skills. Now let's go back to the first one, which is probably the most popular attitude, especially if you're young, and that just keep trying until you get it, no matter what. And there's definitely a place for that. So if you've got the fundamental skills and you don't have pre-existing injuries, and you know the risk level is not terribly high for you trying it, then there's no reason not to keep trying. I'm out here today at Doak Park trying again to work on these ride up and over the top of the ramp. That one has been just causing me problem forever, and I don't know, I'm getting closer, but I'm still trying. There's not a whole lot of downside to this trick. So for me, it's just a matter of trying and trying and trying until I get it. Sometimes, you know, you'll get a breakthrough and you'll see one thing, or you'll see somebody who'll tell you one little trick or tip that'll mean everything to you, and it'll come. But other times you just got to put the work in. You know, skateboarding and inline skating are not something you can learn by watching the internet. You know, you got to get out, you got to get on the board, you got to get on the skates, and you got to put the time in. So ultimately, you know, yeah, that's a great plan, is to just keep working, keep those fundamentals strong, and push and push and push until you get it. So, you know, that's definitely the most popular option. And I would say for the majority of tricks, that's the bottom line. How you're going to end up learning them is you're just going to try them over and over and over, and put in the reps and put in the time, and eventually you'll get it. Let's talk about the third option now, which is probably the most controversial, least popular option, and that's just to stop and to quit. And I would say there are times as an older person that is the prudent choice. You know, I really hate that adage that says, you know, failure's not an option, quitting's not an option. It's always an option. And if you've ever done anything and failed, then you know it's always an option. You can't control the outcome of everything. You can have the best intentions and still not be able to control the outcome. So let's talk about some situations, at least in my life, where just quitting was the right thing to do, and I don't regret it one bit. In my adult life, I happen to be a software engineer. And part of my job is to help the business come up with plans to build new products. And part of coming up with those plans is to determine the cost-benefit analysis and, you know, return on investment. So it's to figure out ultimately, is the amount of time and money that we spend building this product going to be worth either a cost savings or a revenue stream on the output side. And if those two things are not true, in most cases, not every case, there are rare exceptions, but in most cases we're not going to build that. And so I kind of look at deciding to quit something, or, you know, at least a skill or a new trick, kind of in that same light. I have to do a cost-benefit analysis on it. And let's take a look at a couple examples from where I've decided that the cost-benefit just was not worth it for me. Now let me preface this by saying that I don't mean that this is a permanent thing. There are times, I think, when you can gain some skills that would allow you to safely pursue something that you may have decided earlier in your advancement that you didn't want to pursue. So I'm not going to say that that's, you know, once you decide, hey, I'm not going to try this, that you're never going to try it. You know, that's never say never. But in general, I try to balance this against two things for me. The first one being, is it affecting my joy? So if I'm trying something over and over, and it's affecting my joy, then odds are I'm going to look at just stopping doing that, because there's a million other things you can do to not steal your joy. I mean, ultimately we do this sport, both of them, skateboarding and inline skating, because we love it. And the second reason for me, which, you know, may resonate with some of you older folks, is if it affects my non-skating life. Meaning, like for me, jumping on that rail at the park, it was hard, but it was physically bashing my knee to pieces. You know, it was all I could do to jump up on the rail. Yeah, I did make it, and I tried it for a long time, and the longer I tried it, the worse my knee got, to the point where it stopped me from sleeping at night. You know, it affected my weightlifting and it affected my bike riding. So, you know, my second criteria is, if something I'm doing skating is affecting my non-skating life, then I need to look at not doing that anymore. So if it's affecting your non-skating life, or you're worried about your livelihood, then yeah, I would certainly look at, you know, my motivation for continuing to pursue something that's kind of, it seems like out of your reach, or is causing you problems. So, you know, don't let it steal your joy, and don't let it take away your livelihood and affect your non-skating life. And then some people in the end may see this as, you know, failure or quitting, but I see it as being smart. You know, you can't affect your livelihood and take too many risks just to enjoy, you know, a sport that you could probably do something different and have a whole lot risk. So I don't see it as failure at all. I see it as using your head, and you know, I think that's part of skating is trying to use your head here and not just going all out. Now, again, I said this kind of is different for young people. Maybe they don't have as much risk aversion. Maybe they don't have as much to lose. They heal faster than we do. And so, you know, I think if you're younger, you probably look at these options slightly different. But I know as you age, especially if you've had some old injuries like me, I've got that bad knee, and I just decided not to try to jump on rails. I decided, you know, if it's a foot high or higher, the return on my investment is just not there. I don't enjoy working so hard to try and do that and suffering, you know, for days on end just to try to jump on a rail when there's 1,000 other things I can do and have fun, even more fun. So, you know, just look at it not as a failure, but as an opportunity to work on something else. All right, so let's recap what we talked about. So if you're stuck on a skill or a trick, again, there's really only 3 things you can do about it. You can continue to work on it. You can postpone it until, you know, say you're injured, so your injury is healed, or if you need some fundamental skills, postpone it until you've built those fundamental skills up to the level that now you can really aggressively pursue that. Or you can just decide that it's not worth the cost benefit. The benefit of doing it is not worth the cost to you. So, you know, if it affects your life outside of skating, or, you know, if you're worried about your livelihood, then, you know, I think it's okay to just stop pursuing that. There are some fundamental things you need to do. You need to be able to skate on the board or the skates, no matter what you're trying to do. So, you know, always work on those things every time out. Today I'm here. I've made less than no progress today. I didn't get my front wheels up over the top of the coping at all before it hurts my knee now so bad that I can't skate anymore. So, but I'm not discouraged by that. I know that's a technique thing. I'm gonna work on it. I gotta find some different walls, some different places. I didn't struggle too bad at the slant wall at my home park, but I'm struggling with all these things with coping on top. So it's just a matter of working on it, and I know I'll get that. So that doesn't depress me at all, the fact that I didn't make any progress today, because I did drop in like 50 times trying to get up there. I didn't film any of that because it was just kind of irrelevant for this one. I have some other stuff that I could put in as far as skating, but let's just let's say, you know, you've got those 3 options, and it's up to you to figure out which one to do, because ultimately, you know, you're the one that's in charge of your own progress. You know your injury history, you know your risk tolerance. So, you know, comparing yourself to somebody else is, again, a formula for being discouraged, like I said in my other video. But, you know, bottom line, I think most of the time you can probably just keep working at it, but there are times to put it off, and there are times to quit. So just, you know, analyze your decisions, think about them rationally, and try to come up with the right one for you in your situation. So if you've, you know, had issues like this in the past, or if you struggle with something, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And again, as always, guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you on the next one.